Greetings, everybody, and welcome everybody here. And I would like to call the meeting to order for the Board of Woodby Health. We do value the public input and comments, and the board will take those into consideration as they want to present them. If somebody wants to have a public comment later in the agenda, we'll get it either raise your hand on the Zoom in or send us a message into John to keep us posted. So we do have a lot of changes today because we have DMV here today. And so we're going to have to modify the agenda to kind of accommodate the fact that different people have to pop out of here. So if the board's okay with that, adjusting the agenda, we'll do the resolution a little later. So we're going to get into the budget, and then we'll hop into the EMS and a few other things just so that people can have meetings set up with DMV. So we're going to not quite follow the agenda.
Still got to bounce around a lot, and some people could get, like you just said, could get pulled out of here, including me, DMV College. This is our annual survey of the hospital going on right now. So as we speak.
Yeah.
So this will be this is required public hearing of our proposed 23 budget, high level review. I will present, and at the end of that, if everything looks good, the finance committee has done a deep dive on the budget, and we'd like approval of the budget if everything.
So we'll go back into consent agenda first.
Oh,
We have to get approval of the consent agenda.
Move to approve consent agenda.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
So then now we'll go into our public hearing and presentation of the 2023 budget. Remind everybody too, when you are going to talk, well, you take your mask down. So whenever just when you talk, take the mask down so people can hear us clearly. Okay.
So I think all of you have a single page that was just handed out by John with the heading 2023 operating budget. And if you don't have that, it's on the screen here.
and Carol, you might want to slide back to your.
Oh, we'll be back really there.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Use the chair. There you go. Notice.
The heading is 2023 operating budget. Three columns of information here. The first column is a projection of revenues, contractuals, expenses, and bottom line for the year ended 12/31/2022. And that's what we use as the basis to build our 2023 budget. The next column is labeled 2023 events. A better word might have been initiatives. These are things that the leadership team here at the hospital expects to accomplish and is budgeted throughout the 2023 year that will add revenues, total net revenues to be added through these initiatives of $4.7 million. And then if you add the first two columns together, you get the 2023 budget. So where we finished with total net revenues of $110 million at December 31, we budgeted $115 million in net revenues for the 2023 budget year. And if you lift it up there, John, and look at the operating expenses, salaries are going from $46,012,000 to $46,467, and this, of course, is merit increases that we'll be giving out in FY23, which we've got budgeted. There's a number of other things in here. We're seeing supply expenses increase incrementally, and that's going to drive our supply costs up from $16,130,000 to $17,126,000. Here's a net operating surplus which we are forecasting for the current fiscal year of $5.4 million in losses, compared to $3.071 million in losses in the budget year, FY '23. And if you draw on down to the very bottom here, the total net surplus and loss is forecasted to be $2.855 million for the current year that we're in. Combined with these initiatives, that's gonna add $2.3 million to the total net surplus. That's gonna leave us with a budgeted loss of $496,054. So that is our presentation of the operating budget. And are there any questions?
On the non-operating revenues and expenses, and the contributions of 750,000. Can you explain where that comes from?
Okay. Yeah, that is going to be, the foundation has provided us with a listing of capital expenditures that they will take on for next year. And that's what that $435,000 represents, are those contributions from the foundation to the hospital.
Thank you.
Anything else? I've also got a one-page presentation of capital expenditures that are budgeted for next year, totaling a little more than $3 million. And the depreciation relative to those acquisitions are built into the FY '23 budget for next year. There it comes. So we've got acquisitions budgeted for EMS, IT, surgical services, facilities, food services. These are largely equipment expenditures that are badly needed. And the coloring is a prioritization of those needs. If you go down to the bottom, John, you'll see a legend. Priority 1 is the most urgent. These are assets that are past end of life. And then nearing end of life and more than 1 year. Any questions about our capital expenditures? And what you're looking at here is the culmination of a lot of work that's done by hospital staff to build this budget and to collect in their minds those needs of a capital nature for next year.
And those are different from, or are they included in this operating budget, or are those two separate?
They're two separate things. Yeah, there's a capital budget and an operating budget. And the operating budget includes depreciation of these assets that will begin depreciating next year as they're purchased. Any other questions?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that the board accept the operating budget for 2023.
Second does.
Is that any discussion? Cameron,
No.
discussion, all in favor? So moved.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a motion that the board accept the capital expenditure projections.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
But this time, you don't mind, before we get EMS, because Dr. Lemmy has patients to see, so I'm gonna have him do his, he has a quick one to do, so is Dr. Lemmy on there?
Yes.
This is doing that one.
Right here.
Okay, sir, you're up.
Well, the credentials report for this month, we have one initial appointment of Katarina Johnstone, family nurse practitioner in primary care for active appointment.
Move to approve initial appointment.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
We have one advancement of Jeffrey Carroll, PAC, at the walk-in clinic Goldie to active.
Move to approve advancement of
Jeffrey Carroll.
Jeffrey Carroll.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
And we have 4 reappointments. Amy Garrett, MD, pediatrics, active. Brian Schufelt, CRNA, anesthesia, courtesy. Andrew C. Yang, MD, oncology, courtesy. And Valerie McWhorter, MD, pathology, courtesy.
Move to approve the reappointments.
Second.
Second, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. We also should have the bylaws or should have come to you. I don't know if you've had a chance to read through those, but the medical staff has reviewed those and they should be available to you to approve either now. I don't know if you have them right now or at least by this next meeting.
No, we don't have them, but it'd be good to get them and then review them in our work session and then we can vote on the board meeting.
That'll be great.
Okay, Dr. Lemming.
Thank you.
Okay. I will hop back up and Chris. EMS. Now, before he starts, one of the things is that the introduction is that Chris Pellman now has taken over head of the EMS. Roger Myers was there for what, 80 years? And he has since retired. Chris has a lot of experience, a lot of time there, and he is now director of EMS. Chris, you're up.
Thank you, Commissioners, for allowing me to come here today and discuss your EMS system. One of the things I want to do before we get started is introduce some of the other people that I brought down in the room with me. First is Robert May. He's one of our paramedics. He's been here for 30 years. Dr. Zavarula was the NPD for several years. We'll talk a little bit more about his history with us. And then our current medical program director, Dr. Krista Blotcheck. And can everybody hear me okay? If I start to get a lower volume, just let me know. Can you hear? I brought my notes so I don't wander too much because I don't want to try to get in and out of here and let you guys get back to business. So for me, my name, like you said, is Chris Tumlin. I've been in EMS for 34 years. I've been a paramedic for 32 of those years. I've been at PMP for 30. And during that time, 22 years, I spent as a lead paramedic and I've been all of 4 months as the new director. So the first thing we got to talk about in an EMS system is what makes it up. So there's several things that make up an EMS system. One of them is a medical program director. that we operate under the protocols that they write and they're approved by the Department of Health. Dispatchers is our 911 system. We have EMTs, paramedics, firefighters, law enforcement, and other first responders like life flight, and airlift, and Parks Department, those people that respond with us. So when EMS started here on the island, it was initially run by private services. Back in 1981, the hospital took over EMS. And at that time, there were only 2 ambulances. One, I believe, was down in Langley, and the other one was in Oak Harbor. This is kind of what it looks like. We've got a fairly sparse coverage for ambulances, but back then we had a lot less population on the island. So we're going to fast forward to 1991 when I joined the system. At that time, we had 3 ALS ambulances on the island, and we only ran about 1,700 calls a year. And this is what it looked like. They had a new ambulance put central. We have one down by Freeland, and we still had one up in Oak Harbor. Here is a snapshot of what our crew looked like back then, minus about 2 people. So not a real large crew. But yeah, so we're gonna continue to move forward here. So back in 2000-ish, I believe it was, we went ahead and added another ALS ambulance up in Oak Harbor because our call volumes continued to rise. With that, we added 2 BLS ambulances that we collaborated with the fire departments with, one with Central Woodley Fire and one with North Woodley Fire. Over the years, due to call volume, once again, we added another ambulance on the south end, and then we added another ambulance on the north end. But we also added another BLS ambulance in collaboration with the fire departments. So this is basically what it looks like today. So we had, once COVID hit, it was difficult for North Woodbury to get the staffing that they needed to have 24/7 coverage in one of those islands. So we took one of those ambulances and we made another ALS ambulance, Ruby 7 there. And we also decentralized all of our ambulance because of COVID. We didn't want to cohort all of our people. If one person gets sick back then, everybody gets sick. So this is what our system looks like today. So the system, well, what does the system look like today? What's the system that Roger and Z built? So we have the benefit now of working under a system that they have been working on for years. Dr. Zavarro, like I said, is the longest serving NPD for Wrangell County, and we won't let him retire, so he's still our alternate today. Roger Myers was the first paramedic on Woodbury Island. He was the EMS manager from 1990 to 2022. And their hard work basically created the EMS system that we have today. With one of the big emphasis that we have is on community involvement and outreach and making customer service a priority. So what does it look like today for our staff? So we have 4 full-time lead paramedics. We'll talk about them a little more. We have 32 paramedics, 17 EMTs, 2 office staff, a medical program director, and an alternate. We have 7 ALS ambulances, and we have 2 BLS ambulances that the fire department staffs for us. So one of the things that we have in our system that we have built in is surge capacity. Yes.
Could you help me with the acronym ALS and BLS?
I apologize, sorry. ALS is Advanced Life Support, which has paramedics on it. BLS ambulances are basic life support, and they're staffed with EMTs from the fire department. Because we live on an island that is not round or square, we have a long island that has a lot of space in between each of the ambulances. One of the things that we had to do was we had to build in some surge capacity, because since we are on an island, we don't have a lot of mutual aid coming from Anacortes or across the ferry from Mukilteo. If our ambulance or if our hospital or the island was either square or round, we could probably cover it with less ambulances because the out of service time would be much less. We have the ability to surge to 7 advanced life support, or I'm sorry, 9 life support ambulances if we need to. What we do with that is the ALS ambulance, advanced life support ambulance, will meet up with a BLS ambulance, and we will actually take an EMT from the BLS ambulance and put it on the ALS ambulance, and do the same thing with the paramedics. So now, instead of 7 ALS and 2 BLS, we have 9 ALS ambulances that we can respond to calls. One of the other things that we do is we have a lead paramedic that's on duty 24/7, and they also respond to calls. They can meet up with a basic life support ambulance, staff that ambulance with jump kits and monitors, and they can respond as an ALS ambulance. Last night was a perfect example. We have all of the ALS ambulances on the island were out of service on calls. Our lead paramedic met up with the central BLS ambulance to staff an ALS ambulance, because the calls don't stop just because we're busy. Yeah, we have the ability to expand and contract. One of the things that we also have is a Kubota RTD that was donated to us from Soundtrack. And they donated that, and I believe that with the foundation's help, is that how we got is that something right, the trailer for it? Yeah, so with helping the foundation, we have a trailer for that. And this is one of the things that we do with this, is we pre-deploy that to some of the events that we're staffing, whether it be the muscles in the kettles, or if it's, what the muscles in the kettles, if you're not familiar with that, is a mountain bike rally that they do through there. We forward deploy it to, the Real Carbon Music Festival. When we have large areas that have a lot of people in there, you can't necessarily get an ambulance in there, but you can get an RTV down there. It's got the ALS equipment that we need, it's got a stretcher on it. Yeah, so that's one of the things we do with that. So in 1991, we had 1,700 calls. Last year, on the island, we responded to 9,200 calls for service. So you can see how our volume goes up. We provide urgent, non-urgent transport from Whitby Health. So far this year, we've done about 550 of them. So if somebody comes from our hospital and they have to go for some specialized care somewhere and they go back to a nursing home, we're the ones that want to provide that service. We have 24/7 contact with our medical control. And why is that important? It's important because they know our system, they know how we use our system status, our protocols. They know our staffing, they know the medications that we carry. And we contact them on a very regular basis, morning, noon, and night. And so they're always there. We always have the ability to reach our medical control. One of the biggest things that has built into the system that Roger and Dr. Zavarua helped with was system status. So what does our system status look like? Talking about system status, first thing we need to do is talk about the logistics of the island. So like I said, the hospital's in the middle, it's a long skinny island. And if we have to take a patient from Whitby Health down to some specialized care at Harborview or Swedish, you can lose an ambulance for 4 to 5 hours, depending on weather and the ferries, time and day, or your rush hour traffic. That is one of the things that is most concerning to me is an out of service time for our ambulances, because that means they're not here and available when calls. So this is our system today, 2 in Freeland, 1 in Coopville, 4 other ambulances up north. So this is what our system status looks like. If we have 1 ambulance that goes on a call, they're out of service for a little while, maybe they're transporting on island, maybe they're transporting off island, but they're still out of service. So we still have good coverage. If we look at the south end, if they go on a call, same thing, their transports are longer, they go off island, their out of service time is longer. So this is what it looks like when the other ambulances are gone, but we still have very good coverage. What happens if the next ambulance goes off island? One of the things you look at is this amount of area does not have an ALS ambulance. Doesn't have a BLS ambulance in it. The response time to get down to the ferry is, if you're running with your lights on, is about 25 minutes. So it's even longer if you have to go down to Skagit, something like that. So what we want to do, because we want to try to maintain response times between 6 and 8 minutes, is we start shifting our system. So the ambulance that was in Coopville is going to come down and stage down in Bayview. The ambulance that was up in Oak Harbor is going to come 6 Central for central coverage. And this continues. The more calls we get, let's say the next ambulance goes on a call, we do the same thing. We bring the Coopville ambulance down south, we bring an Oak Harbor ambulance central, so we can still maintain our coverage. So I don't like it when we just have 1 ambulance in each area. I want to make sure we maintain our coverage, but we have some other options with that, because we have BLS ambulances, and what we can do is we can split crews. Remember how I said we can search from 7 to 9 ALS ambulances? We have the ability, depending on the manpower, to split crew with those other ambulances to create more ALS ambulances. We also have the option of the lead medic. They can meet up with one of those other ambulances and staff that as ALS. The other option we have is that I'm in the office with the lead paramedic. We get together, we staff an ambulance, and then we're the next ones out. So far this year, we probably had to do that 4 or 5 times. And when we first started having 7 ambulances on the island, the amount of times we had all the ambulances out on a call might have been once a month. Where we're at now is not uncommon for that to happen on a weekly basis, and we don't see it really slowing down. So we're going to go back to the island again and look at what happens when we start running more calls. So let's move this the other direction. The North End ambulance goes on a call. Another one goes on a call. So this is what we have so far, still pretty good coverage. Another North End ambulance goes on a call. So what do? We wind up shifting the system back north. So we take the double medics or the 2 ambulances down south and we just reverse that. We shift them up north. We want to keep those response times down. Incredibly important. We still have the option of BLS units. So we can still man those with the lead paramedic, split crews or myself, and have more ALS units. So one of the other things that Dr. Zambrano and Roger did is they understand the importance of community outreach. Robert May has been doing community outreach for us for quite some time. He is the guy that anytime somebody calls and says, I need a CPR class, we need to have a football game, we have muscles in the calves. He is the one that coordinates all this and has been doing it for several years. This is a very small snapshot of some of the things that he covers. So either he covers it himself or finds coverage. And a lot of these things are pretty simple to say. It's got, oh, hands on the CPR. Okay, that's great. But the thousands of people that he has taught hands on the CPR to, it's not represented in just that. There was one day when Robert taught the entire Oak Harbor High School hands on the CPR in one day. You can imagine what that was like with a whole bunch of high schoolers. Yeah, curving cats.
Focus.
High school football games, North Central and South. We have an ambulance that stands by at all those games. We have had that for years. Talked about the muscles in the calves. We talked about some of the other things that we do is bio life group and bicycle helmet safety. So one of the things I do is I like to staff my weaknesses, like I said. So if anybody has any questions about the community outreach or the private stuff, Robert is going to be the guy that can answer that.
Did you address the fall issue?
Say that again.
The fall prevention. Robert made very involved.
Oh,
with
yeah.
fall prevention.
Robert, you want to talk about fall prevention and what we're doing in collaboration with
Certainly, we recognize that senior falls to those that are greater than 65 years of age has been identified by the CDC as the #1 most preventable cause of injury, disability, and death. So what we did, and that it represented 20% of our calls to 911. So being data driven and also wellness, not just in word, but also in deed through Whitby Health Medical Center, we instituted what was called SAIL, which is staying active and independent for life. It is a it's a multidisciplinary, multi-organization, departmental falls prevention program. Ultimately, it's an exercise program. And so Whitby Health Medical Center, when we were afflicted by the pandemic, we went to Zoom and we pivoted to Zoom from an in-person class that actually happened right here. And so it's that Zoom class has been terrifically embraced by the community because those individuals that are falling also have mobility issues and transportation issues. So we come right into their home. And when they're visiting their grandkids, their grands in Arizona, they have the ability to still participate in the program. And so most recently, we recognized that we needed a lot more help. Island County Public Health did the numbers. They ran the EPI data, as they call it, and they said this is still disproportionately hurting people on Whitby because we have such a senior population on Whitby. And so we're working now with Island County Public Health. We're working with private and public entities. We're working with the senior centers, adult family homes, retirement homes, fire departments, Hearts and Hammers, Opportunity Council. And we were just a very, very small portion of senior falls prevention on Whitby through Whitby Health Medical Center. Now we have some additional bandwidth. And so again, 20% of all calls to 911 was senior falls. There was a time when we instituted a program. Coincidentally, we dropped that number down to 13%. Now, not all because of SAIL, because of a lot of other things as well. But think about that. If we're not responding on a falls call, that allows us to have other ambulances for other things. Okay, so we don't have to buy more ambulances, buy more equipment, and hire more individuals. Plus, these are real people that are falling, and then their members, their brothers and sisters and neighbors. So thanks for that opportunity. Any questions about falls, senior falls on Whitby? I'm always available.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Great job.
So what you're looking at here is a snapshot of back in 2019, our staff. We've grown a little bit, but what's important to note about this picture is this is half our staff. We have quite a few paramedics and EMT and office staff people. And yeah, so we've grown quite a bit. So our medical program director is Dr. Crystal Botchak. She has been with us for 2 years. She took over as the full-time medical program director for Dr. Zavarua. Her credentials include 2 years in Chicago with Chicago Fire. And back there, they have so many paramedics, the numbers are in the thousands, that one person can't oversee all of them. So she was like the number 2 person that helped with all those duties. She also did a fellowship for 1 year down with Los Angeles City Fire. She is currently working as an ER physician at Swedish in the hospital there. She is board certified in emergency medicine and emergency medical services. And I believe, please correct me if I get this wrong, but she is the only fellowship trained board certified in emergency medical services, medical program director. Did I get that right?
I'm not the only one, there's maybe one other person in the state, county.
So that's in the state. So, and that's only been the board certified for emergency medical services, only been around for how long?
Early to mid 2010s, when that board certification became available.
Relatively new, you just happen to get one. So the island, the way it's split up, these are extremely round numbers. But we run roughly 5,000 calls on the north end, 1,500 calls in Central Woodby, and about 2,500 calls roughly on the south. So what makes our EMS system successful? So we have always had overwhelming support for the community that we are very appreciative of. They pass a levy for us every 6 years, so we can continue to support them with all the things that we're doing. We have one EMS system that covers the entire island. So if you're in other areas of the state, they come with the EMS systems are set up more in districts. So when you run all of the ambulances out of your district and there's another call, you will call for mutual aid from another district. Well, they don't start rolling until that call comes out. So the response time could be much longer. We don't have that. We are one system, so we kind of ebb and flow as we need to make sure that we have the best response times that we possibly can. System status, like I said, reduces our response times. If the central and the 2 south ambulances were on a call, it would take a very long time for a north end ambulance to drive all the way down to Clinton. So we want to make those times as short as possible. We have an immediate and an alternate take call 24/7. If you knew how many times they get phone calls, you would probably tell them to burn their phones, because it's not just with the island, they're all of Island County, which includes community. So we keep them very busy. We've always had incredible administrative support from the hospital. Throughout the years I have been here, administration has supported us. They help us fulfill our mission. And personally, for me in this position, so I also do emergency preparedness for the hospital, and I've been doing that since about 2008. And my direct report was Tim. And since I took over as the director, Tim continued to be my direct report for emergency preparedness and for EMS. And one thing I have to do is I have to thank Tim for all of the support that he's given me as a new director. I come with a lot of questions. So, and I asked for help, and Tim was great with that. He says, you do what you think is best, and then come in for help. So I have to say, I really appreciate it. Woodby Health Foundation is also incredibly supportive to this, because when we do things like bicycle helmet safety, and we have handouts that we give, that the Hospital Health Foundation buys those for us. when we do car seats, or when we go to fair, when we do a standby down at the Island County Fair, we're there for 5 days. We provide the ALS care for everybody that is in. One of the other things that we do is we put up a booth and we encourage people to come talk to us. And you know, it's when you have stickers or you have for the kids or you have first aid kits for the adults, it allows you the opportunity to kind of reach out and talk to these people and let them know about our system, let them know what it is that we do. So the hospital has always been incredibly supportive. The other thing we do is we collaborate with fire departments. So we know about the basic life support ambulances. What happens is we pay them and offset their employees fees to have them staff one of our ambulances, which allows us better surge capacity, allows us to split crew. It also allows the BLS ambulances, they can also transport patients as needed. Island County Health Department, Robert spoke a little bit about that. Department of Emergency Management, Eric Brooks is one of the guys that, when something big is happening, like the windstorm that we had, he's always reaching out to us and say, how are you guys doing? How's the hospital doing? Are you have roads down that need to be cleared? So we had established some very good relationships with with our planning partners. They're the ones that help us respond. When COVID hit, DEM, they were a lifeline to us because they were the ones that helped procure all of the equipment that we didn't have from the strategic national stockpile. So some of the past accolades. Some of you may know this, some of you may not, but in 2005, Charles Mock was with the WHO and the Harbor Baby Injury Prevention Program. Sponsored Would Be Healthy EMS as the paradigm of rural health EMS to Vietnam and Hanoi Department of Health. So what happened after that is they sent a delegation to visit small Whidbey Island EMS. They saw the department. They went through the hospital and they just talked about rural trauma. They came to us 3 different times and then we sent delegates over there 2 times, 3 times. Dr. Zavaru was one of those. He went over to Hanoi and was teaching them about rural trauma, teaching them basically on trauma. One of the other things that I apologize because I cannot for the life of me remember the city down in Mexico. There was a city just across the border. It was Cartel Ravage, just across the border in Texas, and they also sent EMS, their EMS employees to come up and ride with Whidbey Health EMS. And if I'm not mistaken, there's a lot of area between us and Mexico where they could have. But they actually came up to ride with us to see what a rural EMS system is supposed to look like. We had other times when Dr. Zavaru and Roderick traveled to Coeur d'Alene to talk to hospital management at the Washington Hospital Association and told them, basically showed them why we are so successful as a rural EMS service. How do we collaborate with the fire departments to increase our surge capacity? And how do we do our system status? How do we provide adequate coverage with good response times? This is only a few of them, yeah. So our system is fairly well known, and these are just some of the opportunities that we had to show. Here's the downside: is that in today's day and age, everything is expensive. Fuel costs for our ambulance. We continue to provide our system status to reduce our response times. It costs money for gas. Unfortunately, at this point so far this year, we are at a little bit of a deficit. And so now the goal is to figure out how do we decrease our expenditures without decreasing our service to the community and our response times. And that's something that we're implementing. So here's my last slide. Before I ask questions, this is for me where it comes full circle, because that's me on the left. That's my son on the right. So he's kind of grown up around EMS for years. And one of the first times I actually saw him on a call was he rode down with one of our North End ambulances on a critical trauma patient and stepped out of the ambulance after they were saving this guy's life. And we just loaded him up on the helicopter, and he and I are watching him take off. So kind of a special picture for me. I would like to entertain any questions. Like I said, I've been here for 4 months. If I don't have a specific answer for you, I will find it. I also have some historical experts here, so.
I wanted Chris to come in. We have, two new commissioners. And I just want to make sure that they got a whole rundown. I mean, we've been involved watching the EMS over the years. I wanted them to kind of get a handle on what you're all about. The two things to keep in mind is even though we've had a lot of issues in the management of the hospital between, the board and everything else, we've had the actual healthcare here and our EMS system have never let us down. They are the shining stars. So we've had really good healthcare here. The EMS has done a great job. I mean, I've watched them over the years grow, like you said, from 2 ambulances to what we have now. It's something to be really proud of when you find out all these other places that come here to Whidbey Island to see how it works. It's a very unique, long, stretched out area. So I really appreciate the fact that what you guys do and how you kept this thing going and going forward. And I don't know if you'd like to have an opportunity for the two docs I'd like to hear your comparison now that you're here, of what it was like between Chicago, LA, and here now.
The patient population is a little bit different. I worked on the south side of Chicago specifically, so the type and amount of trauma is significantly less here, which was greatly appreciated. But when you've seen one EMS system, you've seen one EMS system. And I took over for a very well-run, well-thought-out system here, and excited to work with Chris and all of our partners to really take the system forward here.
Lee, how do you feel about the handoff?
Terrific. I was doing this since 1985 and I grew up with the EMS system that Roger and I participated in thousands of hours working on the system issue. And through that time, I was very concerned as being a provider, not only the HMI, also eventually a consumer. And I feel very good about the system as it is. When I become a consumer of healthcare, I've got this system that's my interface to the hospital. The hospital interface to the community is in large part because of the outreach of our ambulance service. So people know the hospital because we are the front door to their admission and the face in the community that they recognize that it's really General Hospitals and ambulance. It works. The turnover at Crystal, I was favorably amazed at the credentials that Crystal came with all of her training in EMS, formal training that I didn't have to get because it hadn't been invented yet in early years. And Crystal now is academically and experientially massively qualified to take over. So I was very happy to pass the torch to Crystal.
And the phone. Dr. Lemming, do you have a question or a comment?
I was just curious about what the status is between the relationship between the NAS Whidbey and the rest of the EMS system on the island. Are we providing calls on base and do they have their own ambulances anymore?
We do respond onto the base, and we usually run mutual aid with them. I know there was a time when they were have staffing issues also, and they weren't able to staff their ambulance. I don't know what the future holds for the Navy and the Navy ambulance, but usually we do mutual aid with them, whether it's out in the Navy housing or it is on base, and they have some basic life supporting ambulances, and I believe they have the ability to start IVs, but for the most part, yeah, we will respond to them and we'll determine who's qualified to take that patient. If it's us, then we do. If it's them, then they're the ones that transport.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any questions from the commissioners?
I think we're really proud of EMS. I think you do just a terrific job. And I think Rob May and others have been really getting out in that community, and that really makes a difference for us. So I'm glad to see all the things he's been amazing with you all putting together for EMS. Great job.
Like I said, the two biggest shining stars we have is things that the EMS is doing and Curtis and the staff and the ER and the floor. You guys have done a great job. You know, like I said, we've had, you know, you see the issues in the paper, but it's never, those two are not causing the issues. So the way that they operate in the field and the way they operate in ER and the floor, you guys have done a fantastic job all the way around. We want to commend you for that. Dr. Kellogg, you have a question for it?
No, I just appreciate the work that you've done on a personal level. We've had responses to when I had an adult family home. And actually, a couple of my family members are part of your team, so I better not say anything more.
All right, well, thank you for allowing me the time to come and talk to you today. I appreciate it, and we too are proud of our system. But one thing that we know is today we're standing on the shoulders of giants. There's a lot of work that came before us.
The other thing is, if any of the commissioners are interested, it's interesting to go over to the EMS quarters and see how the monitors set up to where they can track everything. And then also, I know that Dr. Robert May, he would give you a tour of one of the rigs, so you can kind of see what's, never seen inside, what's there. Let us know before the end of the meeting and make the arrangement.
Can you touch very briefly on your relationship with Lifelight?
Sure. We have a very good relationship with Lifelight. The fact that they're sitting on the pad now makes it a little more accessible to us. One of the things that we have the ability to do is meet them on the pad. So if we have a critical patient that's in Oak Harbor, what we will do is we will call and activate the helicopter, but we say, just stay right there. Because it might take about 10 minutes for us to get there. It takes them about 10 minutes to spool it up. So it's a lot faster than having them lift off the pad, find a spot to land, and then us take the patient and drive to the landing zone. We could be working on the patient all the way down to the hospital, and that cuts down a significant amount of time. So we appreciate the work that they do, and yeah, we have a very good working relationship. We meet with them usually monthly, and they give us report feedback on some of the patients that they've taken. So we appreciate that.
Thank you.
Maybe this is Dr. Lemming. Maybe this is getting into the weeds a little bit too much, but is there helo grounded during more adverse weather more than what the Navy helos are? And are they still, the Navy still available for assistance when we need it in the wintertime and that?
Yes, so they airlift and life flight have difficult time flying in the fog. We usually call this season Fogtober. So the Navy has the ability to fly in weather that life flight and airlift do not. It's a little more of an evolution to get a helicopter from Navy. It is possible. You just have to use the right wordage, verbiage for it. But yeah, they can fly in some pretty bad weather. I think as long as the winds are less than 60 miles an hour, then they can take off.
Thank you. Great presentation. So we are skipping around here a little bit on the agenda, and I know that Kim, Curtis, and maybe have to go out of here. So one quick thing too, we will not be having a human resource report, a quality report, or compliance, because they are the team. So they'll do a report at the next board meeting. Michael will address HR a little bit when it's his time, but you know, at this point, I'd like to pop in and go to Kim in case he gets called out of here. So, the IT report and facilities, and we have contract. All.
Thank you. Well, to begin with, just updates. So last night we did do a PAX upgrade, which is very welcome. There will be a new icon called the space packs for people to access it, but now that the system has been upgraded, it will allow IT to give other remote access in to our providers. Some things a little bit more secure than what we've been previously doing, so that's a big plus. Earlier this morning, the mammal up at Goldie passed DOH inspection. And this afternoon, they're doing the X-ray portion of that, but we did get a complete pass on the DOH portion or the mammal portion. We continue to work on about 95% completion on drawings for the DI upgrade, bringing in the new CT, the X-ray and the fluoro. Once the drawings get completed, we'll submit everything to the Department of Health. And then once that review is done by them, then we'll get the project out to bid. So it's moving along, not as quickly as we'd like. We did do a site visit last week. We are getting a new UPS, or actually a UPS for that's the CT. We had a power conditioner in place and that has failed. So the unit is basically sitting there unprotected if we have a power outage or lightning strike. So we're working, and hopefully by mid-December, we'll have that UPS in place. It'll actually be better and provide more protection because it has batteries built into it, so it'll keep the power going even during the generator switchover, which will help protect the unit even further. And it will support the new CT when that comes in. So lots of good things happening in the DI world. Lab, we are hoping to have by first quarter of next year new analyzers. Two new Beckman analyzers are coming in. Probably sometime in December, we'll be putting in a new water system that feeds pure water to those analyzers. And then we're getting part of that contract. We're getting a couple new other analyzers, replacing some older ones in the lab. So as far as union negotiations, IAFF, which is with our EMS, we have completed those negotiations. Actually, probably the smoothest set of negotiations that we've had with them in a long time. They're very happy how smooth it went. We have reached an agreement. They have all voted to pass it and approve it. So that one is wrapped up. UFCW, we have sent them our proposal probably 4 weeks ago. We have not heard back from them. HR has been reaching out to them, seeing if we're going to get a response when our next date will be to have a meeting, but we have not. The last information we is that they're working on other negotiations also, so with other hospitals. So don't know where don't really have a timeline for when that one will be complete. Last Monday, the seclusion room in the emergency department and our boiler chiller project was signed off on from the Department of Health. We did our final review with Kevin Scarlett with the state. He approved everything, just waiting for the occupancy letters, and we're waiting on a few parts for the seclusion room, so we can mount the bed in the room before we can actually let staff start using that space, but we're very close. So lots of things getting done and moving along. That's pretty much all my updates I have on facilities areas. Of course, as you heard, we are under DMV. Just to give you a brief update, we had our documentation review this morning with life safety. Basically, they're reviewing last year's deficiencies to make sure they've all been completed, and they have so far signed off on everything on the life safety portion. We'll be doing a building tour this afternoon, looking at emergency preparedness and biomed. So, and then with your permission, I would like to bring up a contract in front of you. That's okay. So as you heard, EMS does an amazing job providing patient care and keeping people safe and getting them to where they need to be to save lives. But we do lose money. So we're trying to find ways to reduce the costs. And currently, the last few years, we've kind of put things off because of financial issues. The board did, and we greatly appreciate that, approved 2 new ambulances that are in production right now that we will receive early next year. But the equipment inside the stretchers, the auto loaders, the light packs, a lot of that equipment we have currently right now, we have 8 stretchers that are at end of life. They need to be replaced. So if we were to do right today, what we needed to do to get things where they needed to be, we'd have to spend $500,000. But rather than buying this equipment and owning it until we can afford to replace it, in a few years. Stryker has presented this lease agreement with us. It's a 10-year lease agreement. And we will get all new stretchers, all new life packs, we will get the maintenance, we will get the auto loaders, we'll get all the equipment that's inside the rigs to keep them up to date and functioning and keep our EMS, running smoothly for the next 10 years. If a new update comes, they will replace it at no cost, be part of the contract. If there's a software upgrade on the light packs, we will get them in I think it's about 5 years, they're going to be doing a complete replacement of them. We will just get that as part of this contract. So by signing this contract, we will save almost $300,000 this year. Out of the capital budget, you probably saw there was about an $80,000 item on there for light packs. That would go away under this contract, so there'd be additional savings there. And then we would continue to see, savings every year by doing this. I know it was brought before the finance committee and it was approved at that committee. So we're just asking for a board approval on this.
Yeah, I spent some time with Chris really going through this. I mean, it's one of the way good deal that you really don't want to pass up on the fact that, something breaks, something goes down, you get replaced that way. So Tim, we have two ambulances ordered coming in next year at this time. They do not come fully dressed out. So this will help dress them out. Yeah, they don't come with light packs and stretchers and all that.
And some of the current stuff that we have, we're gonna move to some of the older rigs, the standby rigs, so. We're gonna shuffle to get everything up, so we can have 7 up-to-date, good ambulances running the island.
What is this annual cost?
It's $181,000 a year. We were given 3 options. We were given a monthly fee, quarterly rate, and an annual rate. And Paul reviewed the numbers and his recommendation was that we pay it annually.
And the finance committee is already within the.
Correct. And we will not pay for anything until the equipment arrives.
Mr. Chairman, just a question. I have a question about light packs. Can you tell me a little bit, Nate Curtis? What's a light pack?
First price out, it's kind of a patient monitor and
It's a defibrillator.
defibrillator,
Okay.
you can bring them,
Cardiac rhythms.
Okay.
And shock if needed.
Okay. Positive airway pressure? No.
No, has nothing to do with respiration, it's strictly cardiac.
Okay.
So why would one not do this?
I can think of no reason why one would not do this.
Well, in the past, there's been some question of having had a 10-year contract. And that's a long time.
It is.
Would that be a question of? I mean, I'm not sure what can change in that period of time that would.
Well, I know that by signing this contract, what will change is, we have a timeline. There's gonna be a 9% increase on most of the equipment, almost before the end of the year. And some of the units are gonna have additional 5% increase after the first of the year. So, it only makes sense to sign it because this equipment is only going up in price, and this price will be locked in and it will guarantee us savings on an annual basis.
And obviously replaced as it wears out.
Correct.
Rather than us having to go through and find new equipment, it's all there, so it's a great savings.
Correct. And at the end of the contract, maybe the option will be there to do another contract, but at the very least, anything that we have in service, we have the option to buy.
Yeah, but there's also had it in here too, like 5 years, if we didn't want to continue the contract, we just buy out the equipment, what it's worth, and then we're out of it. So it does have an ability to have a sunset clause.
Right, also, cash flow entered into the decision of 10 years, $181,000 per year. Much easier for us to sustain from a cash flow standpoint than $500,000 right now.
Okay, Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
This was brought before the finance committee, it was vetted and it was approved unanimously. I would like to make a motion that we approve the contract with Stryker.
Okay, second,
I second that.
any discussion?
Just throw out a round numbers, what's the 10-year savings for this type of contract versus purchasing or leasing?
Ballpark number, I'd say probably anywhere from $700,000 to $900,000
You say,
in savings.
Let alone the
Could
liability.
be, I mean, you know. Depends on if you base it on past history or if you base it on what we should be doing. And, you know, obviously we've deferred a lot of things in the past few years where. If we got into a normal practice of replacing things as needed and as they reach end of life. It'd be close to that $1 million.
My only other question is regarding maintenance, routine maintenance and repair maintenance. Is that part of the contract?
It is, makes included, and all software upgrades and
And we don't have anybody that can take on the maintenance of all this stuff. We always have to send it off.
That's a huge part of it.
yeah, it'd be added to, you know, the biomed contract to take care of any patient care equipment, so.
So the other part of this motion, should it be to authorize, I don't know who signs the contract, is that something you sign? That'd be part of your motion, should that we approve it and then sign it to Mike.
all right, I would amend the motion that we approve it. On the basis that the CEO will handle the administrative part of it. sign it.
I second that.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
I,
Thank you.
And Tim, I know you got a lot to do. If you won't stay,
Yeah.
welcome.
I'll step out.
Go
Thank
to
you.
joint commission.
Real quick, between Dr. Miller and Curtis, if either one of you do up there with them real quick, or,
I have to depart at 1:30.
okay, what about your Curtis? What, 1:30? Okay, then pop back up to Dr. Miller and each of you can rush from to yours.
Well, thank you. Freeland is on track to reopen on December 1st. To your question, Commissioner Richardson, we did do a pro forma, showed a positive cash flow at 6 months and a positive margin at 14 months, based on our estimates of staffing and all the other costs that go into reopening that clinic.
Thank you.
NP Johnstone will be starting essentially on December 1st there, along with NP Cadis. And then in January, Dr. Murphy should be joining us, and potentially Dr. Dan Howard as well. Clinton will continue to have primary care services on panel patients with NP Badger and Dr. Dan Howard, while we recruit for additional primary care services there. On the behavioral health front, we have not successfully recruited any candidates yet. We continue to interview. We have 2 PMHNP candidates that we are going to be interviewing shortly. Those are psychiatric, mental health nurse practitioners that can prescribe for mental health needs. Continuing on the recruitment front, NP Badger joined us this month. NP Johnstone primary care should be joining us at the end of this month. Dr. Minnow Wound Care looks like he'll be joining us in January. Still finalizing contract negotiations with him. Dr. Murphy also in January, assuming she can get credentialed on time. We have Dr. Hansen is per diem to work in our walk-in clinics, hopefully in December. And we had a favorable interview with Dr. Gillespie, urologist, earlier this week. Everybody really thought he was great. And we made him an offer just yesterday. And he is strongly considering us, but he is also interviewing at other sites. So we'll keep our fingers crossed on Dr. Gillespie. And then Dr. Dan Hour is the internist in Cupo here, who's potentially interested in joining us as an employee full-time. She's currently working for us per diem down in Clinton. And we're very happy with her
performance there. So hopefully she can join us on a full-time basis. Update on the walk-in clinics, volume there continues to grow year by year. We're up over 30% compared to last year. We're continuing to recruit for more staff and for both staff and providers, so we can open back up to 7 days. So our volume has grown over 30% at both sites, despite being closed one of the days before we were open also. That's pretty impressive. Call center continues to be doing well. We now have Cabot and Clinton with one answering group. And we're hoping to add Freeland. We'll be adding Freeland when it opens in December. And then potentially other sites in January. Phreesia is our intake solution that helps patients pre-register before they come in to our departments and clinics. We're building out the Meditech portion of that. So that's that would be our rehab department, our oncology services, sleep, and DI lab and DEEP. And that build phase is going on right now, potentially go live early next year. We are building out parlance in our clinics to help answer, how to use automation to answer the phone, direct calls away from call agents when people just want information that a pre-recorded message can handle. We expect that will divert about 20% of the calls, so that the phone agents can answer the phone before patients get tired of waiting or have a voicemail that has to be returned. The retail pharmacy has now taken over the delivery, the fulfilling and delivering all of our hospice patient medications. We think that will, it's a great patient service to those patients. It will increase the utilization of our pharmacy and potentially increase our benefit of our 340B program by utilizing or getting more discounts on those drugs that we can
We're
provide to
doing
patients.
home delivery there too, right?
We're doing home delivery.
That the-
Yes, we're doing courier-based home delivery, same or next day from the order. It's very cool. Speaking of pharmacy, starting next year for our employees that have our health insurance plan, the PPO plan, which is most of them, 90% of them, they will have no copays if they go to our retail pharmacy to get their prescriptions filled. That's very exciting. For those that have the HSA, once they meet their deductible, then their co-pays will be waived. So we're hoping that's going to encourage our employees, our staff to use our pharmacy more. And it's kind of a win-win for all of us when that happens.
Dr. Miller, this is David Lemming. Is there a mileage limit to the deliveries that the pharmacy makes?
You have to be on Whidbey Island. You have to reside on Whidbey Island.
That sounds great, thanks.
And we continue to work on the meds to beds program. It's a program where an inpatient, when they get discharged, we can deliver their new prescriptions to their bed before they go home. It increases the success of the patients actually getting their prescriptions filled, staying healthy, and reducing readmissions. It's actually technically a very challenging process to make that happen, and we're still working on it, but we are able to do this now for some patients.
That's great.
More to come on that. That concludes my report.
Two innovative areas that you got to do a good job.
Any messages before you move on to Curtis? Thank you, Dr. Miller. Curtis.
Well, so far, I've echoed what Jim said with GMV. It's going well. Continue that way. It's exciting to see staff embracing. They've all been eager for this to happen, so we didn't anticipate it on Thursday. Yes, things have to be it.
Is that just the way they do it? Just kind of randomly pop in?
They randomly pop in, and usually it's a longer, they're doing a shorter visit with us because it's just following up on things that were called out last year. So it's a shorter visit, but they're running the same staffing issues that everyone else has, and so it's created a little bit of lag time in your typical review times. So, but they're all pleasant and they're here and partnering with us, and that's what's most important, is how to make this better. With that said, a couple of things I wanted to bring up. We always concerned about having available staff in the OR and PACU. They've done a real good job with that. They're fully staffed, and Mike's done a good job in training his staff, and he will have full complement of everyone being able to do their own individual jobs and freed up without having a buddy the end of this month. So we've not had to worry about OR services due to nursing staff. It's been fully operational now for almost 3 months. Now people will be free, so it's even better coverage. So that's exciting. And then also want to give a kudos to Mike because he's been very active in identifying opportunities for things that have not been met, and charges and things like that that we have not done in the past. And that are appropriate for the services that are being rendered. So the nursing leadership is doing good in all departments as far as reviewing and working together with all, trying to identify things that are opportunities and things that we can do better, and whether it's charting to make sure we capture everything. I had the pleasure of meeting with the new director of revenue cycle yesterday, and we were talking about how do we manage the surge patients that are coming from, that we're handling on med surge that are ED patients. So it's neat that as we get these new directors on here, particularly also HR, these the new players are forward thinking and looking, and that collaboration is getting even stronger. So I'm excited. I'm excited for continued improvement in the processes. With ED, they continue to grow. We hit a whole new high this week of 94 patients. That's a lot. Even the DMV certifier who said she worked in the ED at hospital, they average about 100 to 120. So for us to see 94 patients in a 13-bed ED is phenomenal.
That's in 1 day.
1 day. So, and again, that doesn't happen in a vacuum. So that even if we were full staff, extra support's needed. So again, it illustrates the collaboration of both the internal departments, and that includes PACU and OR. They're sending people over to cover lunches. That particular day, I covered and stepped in ICU, so the ICU nurse can go to the ED and help with moderate sedation. It's a big internal work together to get these things done and the good outcomes that we need for our patients. So that's exciting. With those numbers, I've talked a little bit with Debbie. We're trying to get, as you've heard in the broken room, everyone trying to get staffing. Even the staffing agencies are having problems getting people. We had 3 opportunities this week. We said yes to them, and they were snapped up elsewhere. So it's getting to the point where it's almost a bidding war to get staff. But we're at a point now where I've got to get a little bit more travelers ED just to get them with it. They can't be. Debbie's also reaching out with the manager, reaching out to other departments and other referrals from internal candidates, reaching out to them, bringing them in. And we need that extra staff to train these people that we're training again, to bring them up to speed. So it's a continued effort there. Med surge is the same thing. Knock on wood, we're finally getting to a point. We now have 17 patients on the floor, 2 of which are screened. But where we're sitting right now is very precarious. We have 1 sick call. Everything flips upside down. So the plan is, as we go into the winter months, is to be prepared, because we understand we're seeing a steep increase in OSP and rhinovirus, and of course, COVID is now starting to raise its ugly head again. COVID in itself is not an admission to the hospital, those that have been vaccinated. However, if they have comorbidities with it, it is exacerbating some of the other respiratory issues and requiring admission into the floors. So I'm trying to keep the staffing at a point where we can manage that and have a little wiggle room if we need to send someone to ED or have a call out, that we can still manage the load. And let's see, hospices continue to grow. They've got a traveler MSW in there. And they're a little bit different. They're required to have an MSW that has to do their paperwork within a legitimate timeframe in order to maintain certification. And the caseload on that is where hospice MSW is 20. We're right now sitting at about 35. So we have a traveler in there. We did have one candidate who backed out, but we're still looking for social work support there because the goal is to try and get up to 40 by the first quarter next year. And let's see. And then when you talk about collaboration and other things exciting is when we talk about outreach, JC, the director of pharmacy, and myself will be going on Friday to Island County in Oak Harbor and administering food shots there. So again, it's a reach out, just that your hospital's here, there's good service. And at this point, we're anticipating probably about 60 vaccinations. So it's exciting time. We've brought in some really good key players recently that I think are making a huge difference in our operations and processes. And I was maybe biased on nursing, but they continue to amaze me by how they pull together and do what needs to be done for the sake of their patients and each other. If someone calls out sick, they're apologizing on the impact.
Curtis, I was at the ED probably last weekend. And me before that, but it was cold in there. So they were saying, you know, because we lost power, right? And power went out, we didn't have, there was no heat being provided there too. Is that Jim's not here, unfortunately, he's left, so he'd probably have the answer for that too. But you know about that or?
ED tends to run cold, period. And part of that, I told him passes by design, but the building is low cold, and when we do go on generator power, the building itself, although it gets cold. I'd have to talk with Tim and see. The anticipation, particularly with this new building over here, is that it would be as if we have full power. But I do find with the HVAC, it doesn't seem to kick in as well, but everything else does. And so I'll follow up with Tim.
Yeah, he was interested, yeah.
Yeah, I'm still working on a lot of mechanical issues.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and it's the old HVAC system, and I know we're working on it. The other thing we talk about ED is the number of positive comments we're getting. Debbie has done a phenomenal job. If you look at our ED and what our service was like and the atmosphere over there prior, 2 years prior to her, it's a complete turnaround. There's always room to grow, and we're working on that. You know, you never get to the top, and if you do, there's something wrong.
Yeah.
We always have an extra run on the ladder, but same thing, MedSurg, I talked to a delightful woman yesterday who said, I want to give you $100 bill. She's from a different Slovakia. And I said, well, I appreciate it, but we can't accept that. And she goes, your country's crazy. So silly, you make things too difficult. But I said, here's what you can do. Instead of love, it's a really nice note, goes a long way in our organization. And they said, well, you want to buy some cookies. Okay, I'll buy $100 worth of cookies. And oh, wait. But that's the kind of service, despite everything that's going on. These really nice returns on customer satisfaction. And that speaks volumes. And when the staff is nice about it.
Yeah.
Curtis, you've done an amazing job stepping in and choosing director of nursing services. You know, we do appreciate what you created. A lot of this goes on to you guys. You know, the whole team did a great job.
Well, and I shared before, when I first stepped up in this role, I was hesitant. I didn't know that I wanted to be part of.
I know we had to tackle you and say, no, you can't go.
But I will tell you, administration is working so well together. We are a team. And I think that's the biggest part of this battle, is we have to be united, and we are. And we're looking for ways to improve, and it's not workarounds, it's fixes. And that's the big one.
The whole group, Dr. Miller, all you guys have done a great job.
And thank you for your leadership.
I know you guys need to run and I appreciate you, shuffling this around and it's out of order and everything, but I want to make sure you get up for EMB and all that, so. Here you go, and thank you for your service.
I do appreciate the board, somebody who would participate on a lot of committees and welcome the inputs. Thank you.
So I will try to get this back and what's going on. Before we go into the health tech report, why don't we go ahead and in case you guys get called out right now. Do you want to talk just a little bit, the administrative report and then just touch on HR?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Again, I'd like to compliment the executive team that's been presenting in here. They're doing a wonderful job. And that's how we get everything accomplished. Curtis just spoke about teamwork. And the teamwork is really a nice combination between all the administrative team, leadership, directors, supervisors, and medical staff. And that's kind of new for us this year, to have medical staff working hand in glove with us. So real proud of what they're doing. Much of my introduction has been taken away by my team. So, and that's what we want. But we have brought on with DMV here, there's a couple of folks that are missing and we'll bring their reports to the next meeting. We'll bring on some really talented people. You've got to hear Chris Summer talk before I go. Very talented guy, amazing guy. Jennifer Fortune, we brought on the revenue cycle. She's working with Michael Obey and Michelle Obey on a lot of lost charges down in that area right now on revenue cycle. So Jennifer was going to come. We've got Ian here today. Also, we have a new director of HR who was in here. And I think she is just an amazing person. She's been well received. She's been on board for 3 days. La Jolla Peters. She was here 5, 6, 7 years ago. Is the number 2 in HR. So she left to become the number 1 in HR at a facility outside Seattle. And then she's back. So she's really a breath of fresh air down in HR right now. And she's doing a lot of work in shoring up some issues that we needed to be shored up down there. She meets with DMV, I think in the morning at 8 o'clock. And so that'll be interesting. She's only been here for 3 days. I know she'll do a good job there. Want to welcome Carolyn here. I'm just doing some notes here. She'll be giving a report in a few minutes on health tech, but also she's going to be doing a education session for board governance from Mr. Golder and Mr. Richardson after this meeting. Since they're the newest folks on board, so thank you for agreeing to do that. Let's see, yes, we're real happy to get Freedom Clinic open. We've had a lot of things that we want to roll out in our strategic plan, and we're starting to get on that. Bringing Freedom Clinic back, interviewing a urologist, orthopedist. This week, we hope we can put one of them in here to try it. We've got a respiratory therapist director, respiratory therapy out in New Orleans, and it looks like she'll be joining us too. So we got an offer out of her. She'll be over several other appointments. Annual employee enrollment's going on right now. So that's well. We met with Rotary Club at Useless Bay last week or earlier this week and gave them a progress update. And they were really excited to hear what we're doing. And one of their big questions was, what are you doing for behavioral health? So we're working on it. We got a plan and we hope to get there soon. And so a couple of the folks that are down there are supposed to be talking to us more. We met with the Navy base, some folks from Navy base week before last. And Mr. Goodwin came in with the Navy. He's a controller for this section of the United States from Texas over. And we talked to him about TRICARE and the need to improve reimbursement. And I think that went over well. And 2 of our board members are there, Mr. Golder and our Dr. Ben here. So, and then y'all made some good comments, so we appreciate that. And one of the things that came out of it also was that we met with the new captain of the base hospital, named Julian Althoff, if I'm saying that right. And we've agreed to begin to shore up our partnership with them, meet once a month with them. So that should be really bode well for us to begin to come together with them and do some more partnering. In line with that, we talked about giving more tours of our hospital. So we've given some tours to the public, just to get more public awareness and knowledge of what we do in our hospital. So, Captain Althoff at Navy Hospital has agreed to come down and get a tour. And so has Jesse Stradland, am I saying his name right? Stedman. Okay, Stedman, who is a local news reporter. Talked with her this morning, so we're going to begin to get tours. People know all the good things we do here. Sometimes there's not enough awareness of what our hospital is really doing. So those will be going on. We've got some KPI that we're working on, 7 pillars of excellence, and I was going to show that this morning, but we're just going to skip it and wait to next meeting because we need to hurry on through this. So that would be my report on. Turn back to you.
Okay, before we go into the health tech report, we'll go ahead and go into finance. I'd like to start with Jim. Over.
Yeah, I would like to introduce Morgan Cooper. Morgan has been appointed by the hospital as a community liaison, representative of the public for the hospital. She is serving on the finance committee, and possibly she'll be exploring other areas of the hospital at the same time. Morgan, would you like to say just a few words?
I have a pretty extensive background in medical help. I'm not medical, but I'm administrative. So I believe that I can bring eyes. I've lived in this community for a long time, of course, as I mentioned before. And I can see the synergy all coming together when I come to the meetings. And I just recently went to the clinic. I got to register online for my pre-registration for my appointment. I got my call back on my referral already. They're trying to work with me because my doctor's listed as something else now these days that did my surgery. And basically the process was flawless. I mean, and I think that as we begin to, like the hospital begins to do more and more, that the community is going to see all these positives. And a lot of that happens right here. You know, it starts here with the conversations and the communication. So I'm appreciative to be able to be a part.
We appreciate you when you step up. We've had this in years past.
Yes.
And it went real well and it kind of fell off, but you know, as a community person, and you know, you're able to go out there and, you know, you have to be confidential on certain things,
Oh,
but
yeah.
you can go out there and, you know, you can tell people too, we want to get the word out there and, you know, hopefully we can get like a North End volunteers so that we get the word out on the island. This is where you need to go get your health care. You know, and it's building up more and more. I mean, I think we've made great strides in a short period of time now. Going forward, so welcome forward and thank you for offering up.
Yeah, thank you. I'm happy to help.
We look forward to working with you too. I've had community advocates at several of our hospitals in the past, works out really well. Helps us spread the good word into the community. Moore's very active from talking with her up and down the island from the north to the south. So she can help us out a lot. So thank you so much for joining our team.
Guys are welcome.
Paul, are you coming join us here? Our interim CFO.
Sorry, we're having some technical difficulties. John, if you can find an executive summary. Okay, so this is a report that you all are not familiar with. This was presented and discussed yesterday morning at
Finance Committee meeting. This first page shows your balance sheet, your assets at September 30 versus those same assets at December 31, 2021. Total assets, 115 million versus 109 million as of your prior fiscal year end. And those same numbers are reflected down here under liabilities and net assets. The biggest changes in those numbers are in current assets where we've seen an increase in cash. And then in liabilities, we're seeing an increase in long-term debt from this number to this number here.
What's not been our change up there in cash? I missed that when you were. when you
Yeah.
rolled down, I think, way back.
Yeah, so really two things are in this current assets line. Cash and net patient receivables, okay? And it's a split of about 50-50.
Is that the bank loan that we got? Is that? what
That would be
counts?
down here in the debt,
Okay,
in the debt section, good question.
7 million, 10 million of that is in.
Okay, keep going. This is the financial statement, perfect. Here's September 30. We are showing total operating revenues of 9,000,009, expenses of 10,166,000. And after the non-operating revenues, which includes levy dollars, we're showing a total net surplus $4,297. And on a year-to-date basis, a loss of $833,000. And below that are some key statistics and ratios. These are largely drivers of revenues and expenses. Your inpatient admissions, your ER visits, your hospital outpatient visits, surgeries. And there's some additional information down here on staffing, work, full-time equivalents, and pay. Here's an average daily census. One thing we're seeing this year is a lower inpatient census. This is an average daily census of 9.1 versus what we saw in the prior year. And almost 13 is the average daily census for the year.
Dr. Kemmeyer, any question?
I have two things. One, if we could get a copy of this sent to us, I think all of us would like to have it.
To have your hands on it.
But the other thing is, it seems a little unfair, if that may not be a financial word, but it seems a little unfair to be comparing a COVID year to a non-COVID year, essentially, in terms of some of these figures and things also. So as we're analyzing and looking at it, I think we need to take that into account.
Good point.
Just as a general statement, not anything that needs to be done about it, but rather that you have to be careful about comparisons.
Right.
Hopefully we'll see patients begin to come back to the hospital. After that, in these numbers up here too, I think Chairman of the Finance Committee yesterday was asking if we could include our outpatient clinic visits.
Clinic visits.
And they're
and
not in there, this is only hospital. And the portion of our business is at the clinic, so we need to see if John and some of the gang back at Health Tech can include clinic visits.
Oh, and I think, since the walk-in clinics have started, you know, as we're looking at those numbers, that we also be looking at the ED numbers. Because I think that early on, we were concerned, I don't know that how much would be drawn out of the emergency room rather than going to the emergency room.
Right.
And whether or not our volume together would be increased or affected by it.
Right, logically, it seems that opening a walk-in clinic would pull from your ER.
But with what 94 yesterday,
One thing about September, we did see an increase in our ER visits year over year. And we're also seeing an increase in our clinic visits, which is really rather significant. We were talking about this yesterday morning. I think we've seen 5,000 more clinic visits this year than we saw last year on a year-to-date basis
And that's
through
losing-
September 3rd.
And that's losing a lot of providers.
well, I would, as a South Ender, I would be curious about how that increase has taken place in the South End because of ferry disruption.
Mhm.
That would make enough for anybody to want to stay on the island.
Paul, is that a combination of the walk-in clinics and primary care
Yes,
when you say clinic?
Yeah.
Later, could you just go back up to, obviously, some very good increases and positive news on surpluses. High level, what's the basis for the improvement in surpluses?
I think,
Sure.
I think there's been a great amount of energy directed at managing costs. We see a reduction in full-time equivalents, both on a paid and a work basis. Salary expenses are down.
Contract with hospitals. I mean, hospitals,
Yeah, contracts with hospitals.
that's a $1.2 million.
One great opportunity is these contract labor folks that are working here are incredibly expensive. And if we can recruit staff, full-time staff to replace those contractors, that's probably one of your greatest opportunities here.
And I hear also, isn't this also the time when there's going to be that some of those individuals that were laid off, that their
Their salaries have run
Their
out.
salaries
The
are-
paybacks have run out as of this month.
so that we would see that in December and January.
We've been able to implement a lot of our strategic plan initiatives. And we've been over it many times, but I'll be happy to go over the strategic plan with you. You'll see there are all of the high level increases in revenue and reductions in cost. It's got us to that profit this month.
Paradox is that if we fill all of our empty FTEs, then all of this
It'd be our business.
blown out of proportion.
Yep.
So I have a question about length of stay too. Does that include swing debt? Because it was.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it does, it's a total adult average daily. Yeah.
So the reason I say that is because for critical access hospitals, your average length of stay for the year, not average, but stay, sorry, has to be less than 4 days, so 4 days or less. But that does not include swing debt. So we may need to separate that so that it's clear. But it does include pediatrics, so it includes anybody that's in a bed as an inpatient except swing debt.
As I was stating, adult, it came to my mind that it's A and B,
Yeah,
adult
yeah.
and B.
So we probably need to look at that on an ongoing basis, just without swing debt.
Right.
Now, and just FYI, that was waived during COVID, so even if it is higher this year, we don't have to worry about it, but next year we will.
I was gonna say.
Yeah, it was waived during COVID,
Right.
and the waiver still.
So where are borders in that number? Are they?
They-
included or not included?
if they are a registered inpatient, they are in that.
They're in that number, so borders continue to plague all of us inland and here. So I think we've got, Curtis is not here, but I think we have 4 or 5 today.
So we have orders that are being picked up in our census.
Yes,
Yeah, we have to take some of them out of the ER. They're still really, we have to watch them and monitor them really close.
Yeah, I know that,
Yeah,
the
some
care
of them
that
are
it
there.
takes, but I didn't,
Some are there, some are in the ER.
you know, but if they're borders. And we're not getting paid for them as inpatients, how is it that we can count them as inpatients?
They're just a non-paid inpatient. They are patients. They're not there. We're not. getting
It's
much.
such a screwed up system. Good grief.
So they wouldn't
Yeah.
count if they were just in the ER, they don't count if you move it over to an
Right.
inpatient
And
status.
when we have 90 patients in the ER, we have to move them somewhere. And that's what's caused us to have to bump them up to the inpatient unit. We're just seeing incredible numbers. Normally we're at 45 in the ER a day, and hitting 90 is incredible.
so, this is a cash flow forecast, taking us from November 1, where our beginning cash balance was $15,312,265. And as you go down the page, you'll see sources of funds, patient accounts receipts, levy receipts, and that sort of thing, total cash receipts. And then where is our money going, which is under the cash disbursements section. And again, these are projections based on what we know about the future and what we've experienced in the recent past. Total cash disbursements for the month, which includes this debt service of $2.9 million that we will fund on November 30 for the 2009, 12, and 13 bonds.
You know, we do have a health in there.
We have expenses for Goldie down here near the bottom, $77,000 in the first month, dropping in the next 2 months. Only because we got sign-on bonuses expected to be paid in that first month. But there's your cash disbursements. You take your cash, your beginning cash balance, add the cash receipts and subtract the cash disbursements. And we have an ending cash balance for each of those months through March 2023. And the most important thing on this sheet is the days cash on hand, which is hovering around it goes anywhere from 50 at March 31st up to 55 at December 31.
But what the one we're commonly used to is the bottom one.
Yeah,
And that's the one that we're
Right.
actually looking at.
right. So thank you for that, Greta. There's a safety reserve, which is cash that's available for operations for funding, but we don't want to touch it. And that's 20+ days. Plus what's available for operations. I looked at the cash numbers from a year ago, September of 2021. And it was roughly $2 million, and you're holding up to 3. Is that maybe? $3 million?
Was that 3 days on hand?
That sounds about right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, congratulations are in order. When you, and those are real numbers.
Yes.
Yeah.
When we were just about ready to go under. And so this is a whole different world, and that's through the efforts of whatever your organization is.
Yeah, it's been a great partnership with you all and Health Tech to bring about these improvements.
Mike forgot your name a minute ago, so you can pay
Fair
it back
bonus.
by saying
Turn it
whatever
back.
your name is over there. Hey, real quick on the finance, and John just brought this up, is that it's amazing. I know that the hospital foundation is in the process of helping out and raising money to purchase another 2 ambulances that we need. And so they're stepping up, and I know that somebody made a comment to John. I just want to make sure I brought that up on the finance part. On the board. With that,
It's a,
do you have a magnifying glasses for me? You want to read it?
so
I
we,
can read it.
Yeah, John.
Whitby Health Foundation is starting our fundraising for 2 new completely operated ambulances. Please go to Whitby Health Foundation website to donate today.
That's the head of your foundation, Marion.
Yeah.
Yeah, so basically, I just wanted to acknowledge that, and, we do very much appreciate their efforts all along. I mean, they've helped out a lot of things, so before we moved on, I just wanted to make sure I pointed that out and acknowledge what they're trying to do. And there again, I mean, all of that just helps us out. I mean, when you get the community, people like that just stepping up and that people will donate towards that, it helps us out on our finances, and keeps everything going great.
So we're gonna be sure to break that out, everything that the foundation contributes to us on our management, with
Yeah.
stats. While working on breaking it out so we can highlight it every month. Show what the foundation is doing for us. And we really should.
And then there's one other thing that I want to add. The accounting staff here is working very diligently to harden these numbers up. There's some softness in these numbers, and we're going to continue to see some movement until we've got all the balance sheet accounts reconciled. So there will be some surprises in the numbers that are forthcoming as we work through a couple of years of which has put us where we are.
Yeah, and James and I have talked quite a bit, and with you, Paul, in the fact that, we're still pretty much a year out before we really have all the books, all the numbers, everything solidified, and you guys are doing a great job.
I'm not making excuses, I'm just telling it like it is.
Yeah, but there again, it's not something that you go in and clean everything up and, 30 days, 30. It takes a lot of time. It's been amazing to watch that turn around and where we're at. So, I think the board and the community just need to be patient. It's just going to be, this time next year, because we really have things together.
Thank you.
Anything else? Any questions from the board?
One of the things I would like to have too is kind of come back to our packets again a little bit, so we can get some of this stuff, information out a little earlier, so. Digest these things well before this meeting, kind of like, I have an advantage of the finance committee meeting yesterday.
My goal will be to get these reports in the packet that John sends out.
Right.
And I'm sorry we haven't been able to accomplish that.
Yeah.
And one difficulty, and some of them may have to get out Wednesday night before this meeting, which is Thursday at noon. The finance committee doesn't meet until 7 a.m. yesterday morning, so a lot of decisions are made in there. So some of them will just have to get out to you Wednesday by noonish or so of decisions made in finance. Yeah. At least you'll have them the night before, Rick.
We could have a finance committee meet on Sunday,
During the football game.
Chips and dip.
Okay, I mean, I do apologize for the fact that it's been a little disorganized, and the fact that we had to jump around. So.
Thank you.
At this time, I'll backtrack and go into our health tech.
I don't think I can top the finance report, so.
I'm sure you can.
So, Neil, Todd Hunter will be here in December for the board meeting, just so you know. And he wanted to report that there is active recruiting for the CEO. And he and Peter have several candidates that they think are appropriate, so you'll be hearing more about that. Peter got good speed, is interviewing for clinic administrator candidates. He said he had 13 that he's actually starting to interview. And Wayne Colton has already started, correct, as director of finance? Okay. John Freeman, he was on site for your work session in November and continues to work with Paul to implement the health tech financial statements, and that's what you saw today. It's the first time I've seen it in board meeting, so that's great. Joyce Smith, whose financial services was on site in October and then the 1st of November. And worked with Jennifer Horton, am I saying her name right?
Yes.
Or Tim, anyway, who's the new revenue cycle director. Joy also reported that the clinic physicians are interested in some education about documentation. And she's recommending Paula Bigby, which is, Paula has her own company and we basically refer to her a lot when it comes to documentation and coding. So I'm sure Joy will follow up with Dr. Miller about that. Faith Jones, Director of Care Coordination and Lead. She is also in the process of helping to implement care coordination, and she will be on site in December. So that's my health tech report. Any questions? I will tell you that I was with Shanna had asked me if I could be on site when DNB was here. And I told her that if I wasn't doing anything else, I would try. So I walked in this morning and DNB was here. So you can ask for better time. The only problem is I'm going to be here tomorrow and this is the only set of clothes I have, but that's a personal problem. So.
Walmart, right?
Walmart, there you go. Anyway, so that's all I had. And I do have an orientation for your newest commissioners after the meeting, and I'd be glad, I think I shared that with you, Ron, but I'd be glad to share that orientation with any of you if you're interested.
Thank you. Do any questions? So backtracking resolutions.
Yes, we have resolutions, Mr. Chairman. We
Did
have
the point where it did everybody receive
resolutions.
one of them?
So you should have received the resolutions. We have several resolutions. Some of them are operational and then some of them have to do with the tax levy. So resolution number 446 establishes dates and times for regular board meetings. And they will need to be signed by all of the commissioners. And then duly noted and signed by the secretary of the commission, Deb Gold. So, Paul, if you could give that to Mr. Chairman.
So why don't we go through all of them and then we can vote in the package, okay?
Okay. All right. We'll just hold on a minute. Within the package. Resolution number 447 establishes dates and times for the regular work sessions of the board for next year. So what these two resolutions are. This is 447. Resolution number 448 designates the statutory authority of all the district bank accounts signers, with Paul leading the way as the CFO. And then myself, Paul Rogers, Tim Walder, and Wayne Colson. That would be the signers on all of these, except account number 4452, which Paul Rogers, Heather Dickinson, David Lemmy, and Wayne Colson will be signing on as a medical staff account. That's great. Resolution number 449 approves the district's legal budget, which you just approved, and the amount of the regular levy, EMS levy, and the bond levy to be signed by all the commissioners and certified by the secretary on two different places. Resolution 450 approves the increase in the district's regular levy in comparison to 2022. And that will need to be signed by all the commissioners and verified by the Secretary of the Board. Just a few more here. 451. Anybody got any popcorn we can pass that one? 451 approves the increase in the district's EMS levy in comparison to 2022. And then the final one is the levy certification, which we just talking about, which would be signed by the chairman of our board, Ron, and you would be the only one that signs that. And it's for about 17.3 million. We received 16 this past year. So it is the forecast that we will be coming in around 17.3 million in 2023, up about 1.3 million. So that would be for just the chairman. So that would conclude the resolutions.
Need to have a motion on approving each resolution.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve resolution 446. We approve resolution 447. We approve resolution 448. We approve resolution 449. We approve resolution 450. We approve resolution 451. And we approve the levy certification.
Is there a second to that?
Second.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
So moved.
So we could get these passed around and signed, and Ron, this is the only one that you would sign.
Yeah.
And the rest would be, and then you could sign them all. That's what. While they're doing that, we were going to have an executive session, but we due to DMV being here, we'll postpone it and do it our upcoming meeting. Not anything special.
I think we have actually gone back and cleaned up, jumping around everything. So at this point, we'll go into, there's no other contracts in time.
No other contract.
Okay, we'll go into commissioner comments. So, all right, one in here, you ready? You have any comments?
I do actually. And I'll try to be very brief. I was given the honorary title of freshman, and I'm very pleased with that. Right now, the freshman's undergoing a certification from the Washington State Hospital Association for governors, and I'm 9 out of 12 courses completed. I will have that in the next couple of weeks. So very, very valuable information. I want to just comment very briefly on things that I've seen. And I think it's important as a new member of the team. The financial accountability, Paul, Mike, and your gang. I just got to tell you, I'm totally impressed. And I was a partner in a huge public accounting firm, top in the country. So I know accounting and I know accountants. And I'm just impressed. And we got a long way to go. We know there's soft numbers, but great job. Lots of positions filled. This is a really tight labor market. There's people that are just burned out, people that don't know what they want to do. So the fills are very, very important. The clinic openings. I was a patient today in the clinic down in Clinton and had about 6 staff members, all of which I know. It was just great. I mean, it's just superb treatment. I couldn't ask for anything more. Increase in telehealth and telemedicine. It's going to be gigantic for us. Focus on workplace culture. Mike and his team are taking huge initiatives. They're looking for staff perspectives, et cetera, for the change. Hospice, very casual mention by low-key Curtis and Dr. Miller, but and it's just one of the accomplishments, but our hospice unit is one of only 2 in the entire state recognized by Washington State Hospital Association for our 5 stars. So it's pretty impressive. Management, staff, provider relations, obviously, historically has always been a challenge. It might took that head on, and you can see it, you can feel it as you can in their culture. So it's for me, a very, very exciting time. And I know we got a lot of work to do, but what I'm seeing that I'm very, very suspect of when I don't see it is the willingness for people to be open and transparent and address problems, et cetera. And I'm seeing that. So I have nothing but like good hope, and I'll do my best to shore up the end of the governance as the freshman.
Well, and I'd like to say, Mr. Freshman, that I'm impressed with your eagerness to dive into getting certified by the Washington Hospital Association in board governance. And you've got a couple of courses to go and you will be certified. So thanks for diving in on that and getting that work done.
Yes, well, job. Happy to.
Any Anderson? Yeah, he's.
No, I'm just very, very impressed with health tech and how they see the huge changes for our health and the direction that's going. It's feels very wonderful, frankly. I think Mr. Richardson here is going to be just another very added asset for our practice going for our health and moving forward.
Jamie.
Yes, I would like to tell Carolyn how much we really, really appreciate what Healthcare has done. These financial reports that you have provided for us that we're using are incredible. And they have shed so much light on what's actually going on. And it's made a tremendous difference. And I want to thank you for providing excellent employees. I mean, it's my understanding that we currently have working here from Healthcare, one permanent and one full-time CEO and two former CEOs. So I thank you. I'm sorry. CFOs. And so I want to thank you very much because you have done, your organization has done a tremendous amount for helping this hospital.
Dr. Kennedy.
Yeah, the one thing that I've already talked to John about adding a line item that the Board of Health, we also have a representative on the Board of Health, and I've been on that for a number of years. And that's, we will not have a meeting in November and December, but there's a regular meeting, but there will be one on the 6th of December instead. And I have been on this for quite a number of years, and usually I have a meeting with the CEO just prior to the board meeting, so I can give them an update on those things that are relevant to both institutions at the same time. So it's something to consider if someone else is interested in participating in that as time goes forward. And also
A board member here.
and as time goes on, that if there are things that are relevant from the Board of Health that I think are important here for the board, I share that also. You can see that one.
I did there. I was very interested in with the board.
Do you want to comment about our work session, letters that would upcoming?
Sure, at our next board meeting, Shanna and I will update you on a meeting that we've had with the Washington State Hospital Association lobbying attorney and some recommendations in terms of how we can work to deal with some of the financial problems and some of the issues that we talked about a couple of meetings ago. So we will bring that to the work session, and also how we may work with our political counterpart, both on a federal and on a state level.
We'll have those letters ready for work session.
The only comment I have is that being on the board for a number of years, I really appreciate the fact of kind of what admin's done as far as working with all the board members. You know, that each board member can approach admin and be part of, getting things on the right track and keeping the communication. I think it's amazing. So like I said, I appreciate the commissioners' involvement, other commissioners and help that. I think we're really, everybody has the same mission in life now, so get this place going forward. Because there again, I mean, at a certain point, we're all gonna be using that, and we don't want that. Super good place, so I guess I do want to commend you on that. Great. If there's nothing else there, we'll go into public comments.
Did you cut Brett out? Did you have any comments or you are comments?
I made my
I
comment.
missed him. Okay, I'm sorry. I wrote them down. so.
My name is Greta Cameron. I'm one of the commissioners.
It is a table I can't see down there. Okay, I'm sorry.
So as we go into, we do have one visitor here. Comments?
No, I'm good.
Just want to make sure we address that. So, John, do we have anything?
No hands raised at the moment.
Did anybody send any comments or questions into you?
Just the one from Marion Foundation.
So we have no need for executive sessions since we have everybody out of here. Basically, we will be putting, the next board meeting is, the work sessions December 1st and the board meetings December 15th. But if you have any additional things you want to add to the work session, make sure that when you get it into John, that's the best way to do it. Just, he'll communicate and we get together on the agenda, but that way he also will, run it by Mike too about what you want to add, so we're all on the same page. Same thing for the board meeting. Like I said, I do apologize for the fact that we're a little disoriented, I feel muffled here a little bit, but the DMV here, we had to make quite a bit of adjustment, so we appreciate everybody's patience with that. So I'm up for one more motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move we adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second, that's.
Reluctantly.
All in favor?
All right.
Thank you. We are, thank you. Everybody.